Hi and welcome back to my channel. I'm Simon and today I am back at the start, or this is the start, of the third of me and Mum's parallel reads of the Booker Prize shortlist. We have so far done Orbital, which has been on Mum's channel, which I'll link down below, and the first one that we did was Held on my channel a couple of weeks ago. This week we are reading, or will have read by the time we get to the end of this video, Creation Lake by Rachel Kushner. Now, I don't know too much about this book other than it's described as like the fun one on the Booker Prize shortlist, although that instantly makes me think it's like the fun one in the friendship group, the crazy one, the outrageous one, which could be possibly grating. Anyway, but I'm hoping that isn't the case and that I'm just going to really enjoy it. I think it's about spies. I think it's got something to do with the environment, and that is all I really know going in. So I'm not actually going to be starting this now. I'll be starting it later on today. But I thought while the light was good, I would have a catch up with you because I'm going to start it tonight. So yeah, I'm intrigued. I have read Rachel Kushner before. I read The Mars Room when that was longlisted. Was it shortlisted for the Booker Prize? Can't remember. And it wasn't my favourite, but I didn't hate it. I thought it was sort of fine. So at first when I saw this was on the long list, I was a little bit tentative about it. Then I saw that Sarah Jessica Parker absolutely loved it. And I absolutely love Sarah Jessica Parker. And actually at some point really want to read all the books that she has published over in America. Anyway, I'm going off on a tangent, as is my want. Oh, I know the other thing I was going to add. I have been watching and absolutely loving Slow Horses. And for those of you who watch it, you will know that... Oh my God, what's his name? The main detective, him, he's quite a difficult, not particularly likeable character, but you love him despite all those flaws. I've heard that the narrator of this book is kind of like a female version of him. Right, that was 3 minutes that none of us will ever get back from our lives. But hopefully the next however minutes, which again, none of us will get back from our lives, wow, that's a happy way of starting this video off, will be a delight and that you'll enjoy it. And it'll be interesting to see where Mum and I agree, disagree, all the things in between.
So I started reading Creation Lake last night and I only read about, I don't know, 15 pages or so, but I had to read it all over again this morning because I just felt a bit lost. I wasn't really very engaged to start with. There's lots of sort of detail about Neanderthals, a discussion about Neanderthals and whether how much of the Neanderthal exists in Homo sapiens, and the idea that we might be loitering inside a Neanderthal brain. I think I've understood that correctly. And it just didn't sort of engage me initially. And I suspect possibly that if I hadn't been reading it for this reason, to vlog about it, I might have just ditched it. But I'm actually really glad I didn't. So the narrator is clearly, there's something very unsettling about the narrator. And I'm not sure that the narrator is particularly reliable. I've got no name to pin to her. I think she's female. And she's reading someone else's emails. All the stuff about Neanderthals is somebody else's emails that she's reading that I think she shouldn't be reading. And now she's turned up at this really sort of neglected, ramshackle, formerly grand house in France somewhere, and you get the feeling that she's, well, I think you're told that she has kind of conned her way there, and her boyfriend, inverted commas, Lucien, I think his name is, she's sort of tricked him into granting her permission to stay there. So she seems like she's quite a sort of con artist. I don't trust her at all. And I'm beginning to enjoy that. And the other thing I'm enjoying at the moment is the fact that each chapter is, in fact, they're not even called chapters, but they're very short. So it's quite sort of snappy. You're moving around quite quickly. So I think I've sort of got over my initial disorientation and sort of lack of engagement, and I'm now definitely, I've only read about 20 pages, but I'm definitely, although I've read them twice, I'm definitely starting to feel quite sucked in. So I think I'm going to persevere. Well, I'm going to have to persevere, and I suspect it's going to get a lot better because I'm really quite intrigued now. There we go. More later.
Hey up everyone, so I am a quarter of the way through Creation Lake by Rachel Kushner. I'm about 100 pages in, and it's a slower read than I was expecting because of all the discussion around it being a spy novel, but also like the funny one. I was expecting, or the fun one, not the funny one necessarily. I was expecting this to be kind of a book that you can read quite quickly, and when I am reading it, I do read quickly, but there are times I need breaks from it. And the reason for that is that I'm really enjoying, kind of not the right word because she's not necessarily, well, she is enjoyable because she's quite offish, but I'm getting enjoyment from getting to know Sadie Smith, who is the spy in question, although if that's her real name, you're kind of a bit mystified. She's quite an enigma, and she's also quite difficult and quite feisty and quite blunt, but also lying and pretending to be sweet and innocent to lots of people who she's using basically to, well, spy on and or get information from, or using people to get ins into certain situations. Hi, Oscar. And yeah, I'm really like enjoying her narrative. However, every so often we switch to these emails that this professor is sending about Neanderthals, and I'm not going to lie to you, I'm finding them really boring. And not only am I finding them really boring, every time I get to one, I want to like get to the next bit. I'm like, I don't care about this. I'm sure it's got some big reason for being in the book, but currently I can't see it. And that's the other thing that I'm finding slightly, not annoying, but like tricky with this book, is there's a lot of characters introduced and I can't sometimes separate them or work out who is who or who they are in relation, because they're feeling very samey. I don't know if that's the point, but actually it's quite hard to grasp. And the only person that I'm really getting to know, I was going to say was her lover, but she doesn't love him or even really like him and certainly doesn't want to be having sex with him. But and he's not an informant, I was going to call him that. But the man that she's kind of embroiled herself with in order to find out lots of information and to get to someone else. I'm going to keep it quite vague because obviously it's a spy novel. It's a bit twisty-turny. The other thing I will say, and this sounds like I'm giving the book a kick in, and I'm not, because when I am reading it, I'm really enjoying it, apart from the Neanderthal bits. But I do feel it's very, I did this, then I did that, then I did this, then I did that. That can only kind of be sustained for a certain amount of time before it starts to get a little bit, not repetitive, but there is that element to it, but a little bit boring too. And at the same time, I love Sadie's narration, because there'll be a lot of times where she'll be like, da da da, I didn't say. And I like that wry, naughty, quite cutthroat in some ways, and incredibly dry sense of humour. I'm really, really enjoying that element to it. So at the moment, it's like, fine. That's what I would say, which again sounds like a backhanded compliment, and I don't mean to, but yeah, it's fine. I'm enjoying it when I'm reading it. I think if I wasn't reading it for the Booker shortlist parallel reads with Mum, I feel like I have to add that on as like an extra title for the book. But if I wasn't reading it for that, I do question if I would be, I was going to say I would be questioning if I do question if I would be questioning whether I would be wanting to carry on or not. I think it hasn't got the intrigue that I'm expecting from a spy novel yet. I'm hoping that comes more and more to the fore. But yeah, it is the sort of book where I'm like, yeah, this is fine. I'm kind of, yeah, fine with it. But I do remember Jan Campbell saying that she doesn't want to just be reading fine books. It wasn't when she was talking about this one. And I totally get that feeling. And I'm having that where I'm like, I think I'll enjoy this when it comes to the end, but will it be like the best book that I've read all year? Probably not. Will I be thinking about it lots in the future? Possibly not. Wow, I sound like I'm giving this a kick here. Mum's probably like, oh, I'm absolutely loving it. It's fantastic. I can't get enough. She's the nicest savage of the two, let's be honest. Anyway, or the least savage, or the less savage of the two. Let's go with that. She's the less savage of the two, maybe. Although actually, no, that's not true. She can be cutthroat. Anyway, I've gone off on a tangent. I've talked for longer than I meant to, but so far, I'm going to say so far so good. That's the tone I want to leave this on. I will report back when I'm halfway through and let you know how I'm doing, which will be in about another 100 pages actually, so maybe later today, if not tomorrow morning.
So I'm now about halfway through Creation Lake, and I think probably on balance I'm glad I've stuck with it, although I don't, you know, when you're reading a book and you're genuinely not sure how you feel about it, it's a bit like that. I really enjoyed, there was a fantastic description where the main character, I now know her name is Sadie, or at least that's the name that she's under at the moment in the story. And she spends some time in Marseille, and I really enjoyed that. It was kind of like, I felt like she was sort of sending up the pretension of the place, and I found some moments that I feel are quite comic. Especially we're learning more about her stay in the area where her boyfriend, in inverted commas, grand house is, and in the French countryside, and some of the people she encounters and the way that they're described are really quite funny. I don't know whether I said earlier that she's a secret agent, and she is working for, well, we don't know who she's working for, somebody with power and money, and her job is to infiltrate this commune of eco warriors. And she's met one of the leaders, and again, the way that he is described I've found really entertaining. There's a sort of Chandler-esque element to, that's Raymond Chandler, the crime writer. He's got a very distinctive writing style, and if you've seen any sort of those detective movies from I want to say the 50s, but it might be earlier than that, black and white movies, you'll know exactly, you'd recognise his style from those movies. He was always also involved in filmmaking, I think. But anyway, there's a sort of kind of terse, almost like one-liners in her writing style, and I've really enjoyed that. And I suppose the most interesting, the reason why I realise I've got to stick with this novel and read on is because there is this character called Bruno, and Bruno is the man at the beginning who is describing the Neanderthals and clearly knows an awful lot about that era in human evolution. And Sadie has been snooping on his emails, the emails between him and the leader of this commune, and Bruno is trying to persuade the commune that the only way to really become proper eco warriors is to kind of go back to the primitive past and be more primitive in the way that we live our lives. And she's sort of, I feel like that's kind of being sent up, but also maybe a sneaky little bit of admiration as well. And the thing that I'm really enjoying is that Sadie is becoming more and more intrigued by Bruno. She talks about Bruno all the time. And I now have become really intrigued by Bruno. I mean, he's living in a cave, for goodness sake. He's also, it's emerging, has got quite an interesting past. And that is keeping the momentum going for me. It's keeping me interested enough, just. And I've realised that I really want to meet Bruno. I'm hoping that will happen before the end of the novel. There's no guarantee. I'm not sort of clear in my mind that that's definitely going to happen, but I am intrigued enough to be really quite desperate to meet Bruno and see what he's like in reality. He's a much older man. As I say, he's lived in a cave for years. He's clearly, though, able to send emails, so that's quite intriguing. So yeah, it's an extraordinary novel. I can see it's really quite original. I don't think I've read anything quite like it before, but I can't say that I am loving it. I can't say that I'm happy to put it down. So yeah, I'm feeling a bit lukewarm about it, I think, probably. Anyway, I'm going to see if I can go and finish it now. See you later when I have.
Morning everyone. So I have got over halfway through Rachel Kushner's Creation Lake, and I have to say I am seriously finding it a bit of a drag. I'm really intrigued by Sadie's narrative, and I'm kind of intrigued as to what she's spying on with this commune. However, at the same time, I'm finding there's so many different men that she's talking about that all seem to be so similar. I'm getting really confused. I mean, I know who Bruno is because his emails are boring the boringness out of me. And by that I mean, you know, when you like catch up with someone and they tell you about something that happened in, I don't know, their emails, or they go into real detail about a conversation when actually you could just do with the highlights. That's what this is like. So it's like somebody who's unnecessarily going on about the different emails she's seen from this guy Bruno, and I just don't care. I didn't care about the Neanderthal stuff after a while. Then we've gone to the 1940s with him, and I think what Rachel Kushner is trying to do is give us like an insight into French history. And I will say this book has made me want to go to Marseille, but I just, every time it comes to the Bruno emails, I'm rolling my eyes and just being like, this is so dull, I don't care. So yeah, I am struggling with this one. And whilst I feel like, oh, maybe I shouldn't DNF any because me and Mum are doing it together, at the same time, there's a lot of books out there that I need to read, and this one is just not. I'm worried that this might end up giving me a book or send me into a book funk. So I'm going to try a bit more of it and see how I get on. And yeah, well, I can't see myself heading into Stoke during my lunch hour because it's not a book that I'm desperate to head back to when I put it down either. Apart from, I do quite like Sadie's narration just because she's so crotchety and wry. I mean, there is a meanness to it that I'm not too sure about, but yeah, that's where we are. I don't feel like the story's developed since the last 100 pages when I spoke to you particularly. We've got more of this kind of ramshackle place that she's ended up staying. That's the other thing I was going to say. I feel a bit like with this book, there's so much going on in it that nothing's quite getting the space and breath it needs, but also there's so much going on in it, it gets a bit confusing and slightly exhausting. And with Sadie, whilst I enjoy her narration, there's a lot of I did this, I did that, I did this, then I did that, and it's all a bit distanced and slightly verging on monotonous and one note, which I think is her keeping you at a distance slightly, but also just who she is. But then with the Bruno stuff, because it's like the email said, Bruno said, and Bruno, I don't know, it feels, I'm kind of shocked this writing is on the Booker Prize long list, let alone shortlist, if I'm honest. I should also say I didn't love the Mars Room, so maybe it's just that Kushner isn't for me, and that's absolutely fine. But I just feel a bit sad because I really wanted to love it, and I was so excited after hearing Sarah Jessica Parker talking about it, and after it being compared to like Slow Horses in some ways, and I'm not getting that from it, and that makes me get frustrated with myself because I'm like, oh, other people already get this and I'm really not getting it, and people saying it was the fun one, and there have been a few giggles along the way, I won't lie, but then like I said, sometimes I'm like, it's actually this sense of humour a little bit mean. So yeah, that's where we are. I'll be fascinated to know what Mum thinks of it so far, but yeah, I won't know until she's done with it. I mean, she might DNF it for all I know. That would be interesting, wouldn't it? Because we're not talking about them at all until after the videos have gone live, so we're not sending each other our videos if they're for the other one's channel until literally like a day or so before. So yeah, that's my thoughts. I'm feeling a bit sad that I'm not loving it more because there is something about Sadie that I am enjoying, but I am finding it a little bit, it's hard work, like, but not in a hard work because you're going to get something out of the way, just like hard work because it feels like a bit of a slog. Anyway, I feel like I've given it a kicking now and I'm going to go, but yeah, let's see how I get on with the next 50 or so pages, and I shall report back either then or at the end. We'll see. Keeping you on tenterhooks.
So I finished reading Creation Lake, and I have to be honest, I was glad to finish it. I think this novel just isn't really for me. It's very well written. It's interesting in that it's, I've never read anything like it before. I think it's quite unique. I think the way that the character of the narrator works is really clever, but I just found I got increasingly annoyed by her. And I don't think we're meant to feel sympathy towards her, but I just found her really frustrating. I kind of wanted to give her a bit of a shake from time to time. However, there were lots of things that I did enjoy, and I liked the setting of the lake, and all the sort of various water shenanigans around that. I really liked the sort of manor house, or the very grand house that she was squatting in, for want of a better word, and actually the disdain and the sort of contempt for her surroundings that she showed. I thought that was really well thought through because, being a spy, she's going to have a pretty itinerant existence, moving from place to place. So, what does it matter to her if the place is a tip? So I did really appreciate that. And some of the descriptions of the woods and the caves and things, I enjoyed. I thought the way that the character of Bruno sort of loomed over the novel, and the way that her attitude towards him changed, and the way that his ideas made her think and reconsider her life was very clever as well. And it was a sort of tidy resolution to the novel, but I don't know, it's just such a strange, for me, a really sort of dissonant mix of politics, history, spy novel, and not an awful lot happens. It wasn't, there wasn't a really taut plot. There weren't many twists and turns. Nothing occurred that I couldn't perhaps have predicted. So for me, it just felt a bit flat. And I honestly think that had I not been reading it for the prize, I probably wouldn't have finished it. I think I'd have DNF'd it, which is a shame, because in some ways I think it's a novel that I'll be thinking about for a long time. I think there are certain aspects of it that will keep popping into my head, and I think reading's really strange like that, the way that it works. But anyway, as you can see, and I haven't even mentioned the sort of the eco-warrior side of the story. There's a commune with these eco-warriors, and they're just such a dysfunctional group of people. And again, I suspect that's probably quite well observed, but I wanted to really care about what they cared about, or I wanted to really care about them, or I wanted to really totally despise them, but none of those things were being generated for me. So I don't know if it's just me, but if you have read it, obviously, I'd really love to know, and I'm sure Simon would, what you think. When it comes to what Simon thinks of this novel, I'm really, really not sure. I suspect that he might feel a bit like me. It's quite bitty. I'm not quite sure what it wants to be. And I wonder whether that will sort of, I don't know, whether that will frustrate him. I'm not sure, or maybe I'm just imposing my own feelings on him. So I am desperate to know. I'd love to ring him up right now, because this video isn't going to go out for another week. So I would really love to ring him up and ask him, but I'm not going to, because that just wouldn't be in the style of things. So the first I know about it will be when you know about it, because it's his job to edit this particular video. So there we go. So I'm off to read the Safekeep, and I'm hoping it's going to be, for me personally, a more positive experience than this was.
Hey everyone, I have sadly DNF'd, or decided to DNF, Rachel Kushner's creation, Lake. I gave it another 60 pages, but there were little moments where I thought, oh no, I'm back with it. But then Bruno would come up, or suddenly it would be like talking about Pascal or Lucienne. I was getting confused who was who. Then we were going suddenly to Spain, which I hadn't been aware that had been mentioned before. And it's just darting about too much for me. And I'm not feeling like I'm sort of firmly within the world that Rachel Kushner's trying to create. I think for me, this is also a miss because it's kind of meant to be about a spy, but the level of espionage and spying is not that high. It's also a bit confusing. There's a bit of harking back to previous cases, more than what's really going on with this commune, but I wanted more of the commune. And I just feel like this book is maybe a few books all rolled into one, that actually just some of the themes within it could make a really, really, really great novel. But with all of this stuff going on and this kind of, I did this, I did that, I did this, I did that routine within Sadie's admittedly entertaining, quite often narrative, I don't want to say I'm bored, but it's dragging for me. And I also was thinking back to what I think I mentioned previously about Jen Campbell saying, like, there's so many books in the world and so little time to read. She didn't say this, but this is me sort of putting my spin on it. There's so many books to read. There's not that much time there's a limited amount of time that we have to read them. Do I want to spend my life reading books that I think I'm just going to feel like fine about afterwards, or are actually dragging, or I'm just not really enjoying? And so life is short and I'm not going to read this. If it wins, then I will head back to it. And maybe at some point the spirit of Sadie will take me over and I'll head back to it again. I have enjoyed reading her. I think for me, every time Bruno comes up, I get really bored. I did talk to my Patreon book club last night about it, and a few of them said, don't worry. Well, a few of them said that you don't need to read all the Bruno bits, but that to me totally defeats the purpose of the book. And yeah, I just think it's interesting, but it's not hooking me. And I'm not saying that in the fact that it's meant to be sort of a spy novel, so it should hook me like a thriller. There are lots of literary novels that can hook me. This one just isn't really doing it for me. And it could just be that me and Rachel Kushner are not meant to be, and that's absolutely fine. I read The Mars Room, I wasn't too sure about that one. So, you know, that's no disrespect to her. I think there's some really brilliant moments in here, and there is a fantastic character. There's just too much time spent away from them with quite boring stuff. And I got to the part of the book called Get Lucky, and I was like, right, come on, Simon, keep going. You've only got like 130 pages to go. And it suddenly was another history lesson, it felt like. And I was like, nah, I'm done now. So that and Bruno, sorry, it's just not for me. It'll be really interesting to see what Mum's made of it. I have no idea. I'm going to edit it shortly, all our different thoughts. So I'll find out pretty much not long before you all do. So yeah, we'll have to conversate. Where did that word come from? We'll have to have a conversation about that. Let's chat about that in the comments down below. There we go, that's better. Next week on Mum's channel, we will have read The Safekeep. I'll have reread it because I've already read it once. Really looking forward to rereading this. I think it'll be very interesting because there are twists and turns which I of course now know. And I wonder how much I'm going to have spotting any nods to that, which I won't give away because obviously it's going to be a spoiler-free video. But also if I enjoy it knowing what's coming. So yeah, you will be able to see that on Mum's channel next week. I'll be back with another video very soon. I think it's my September book haul, very belatedly, admittedly. That should be on Sunday. But until I see you all again, I hope you're reading something fabulous. If you want more savage content, then Mum's channel, because she's a savage, is linked down below where you'll be able to see us talking about this and also last week's parallel read of Orbital. I'll link our Hell parallel read down below, but also my Instagram, artist formerly known as Twitter, Patreon wishes, all those things. And yeah, let's keep the chat going in the comments down below. And I'll see you all in another video, as I said, very soon. Bye.